I want you to picture a scenario. It's late at night. You are lying in bed, the room's pitch black, and the only light is that soft, well, slightly aggressive glow of your phone screen.
Oh yeah, the doom scrolling glow.
Exactly. You are doom scrolling. Maybe you're looking at economic news, or maybe you're looking at photos of high school friends who somehow look 10 years older than you remember them looking.
Which is always a harsh realization.
It really is. And suddenly you have that thought. You know the one, the um, the universal anxiety thought?
The thought of, how much time do I actually have left?
Yes.
Yeah.
You start wondering if there's a clock somewhere. Like, is there a literal fuse burning down inside me right now? And if there is, can I see it? Can I check the time?
Right.
It feels like a philosophical spiral, like something you would discuss in a late-night freshman philosophy class. But looking at the stack of research we have today for our deep dive, it's not actually philosophy, is it?
No, it's very much biology. And I'm thrilled to be here to unpack this with you today, because that is the wild part. We usually frame mortality as this poetic concept, but nature has a very literal answer. There is a physical counter inside your
A
cells.
physical counter.
Yeah, it is a fuse that burns down a tiny bit every single time your cells divide.
Which sounds absolutely terrifying. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way. I'm your host, and as always, I am joined by our resident biology expert to help us navigate this. And today we are talking about telomeres.
Telomeres.
And I want to be really clear about the mission here, because looking at these sources, we've got everything from Nobel Prize-winning research to clinical breakdowns of genetic disorders. It is so easy to get lost in the jargon.
Oh, absolutely. The terminology can be incredibly dense.
Right. So we need to answer three specific things today. One, is this a death prophecy written in our DNA? Two, can we hack it to live forever? And three, the catch. Because in biology, there is always a catch.
Always. And the catch with telomeres is a massive one. It involves, well, the single scariest disease we know. It is probably the most dangerous trade-off in human biology.
Okay, so let's start with that first one, the death prophecy. When I read that our cells have a fuse, my immediate reaction is panic. It sounds like an expiration date stamped on a carton of milk. Is that an accurate way to look at it?
I think we need to debunk that premise right out of the gate. It is incredibly common to think of telomeres as an expiration label, but if you look at the actual mechanics, that is not quite right.
Okay.
They aren't predicting the future. They are protecting the present. They are the infrastructure of cellular renewal.
Infrastructure, so they are structural, like beams in a house.
Precisely. Think of them less like a crystal ball and more like a hard hat. Their job is to protect genetic integrity during the really dangerous process of cell division. But like any piece of safety gear, they wear out.
And that wearing out is what we are going to explore today. To visualize this, the sources keep coming back to one specific image. It's this classic analogy. It appears in almost every single paper we looked at.
The shoelaces.
The shoelace.
Is a classic for a reason. It works perfectly. So I want you to imagine a shoelace.
Yeah.
At the very end of it, you have that little plastic cap.
The aglet.
The aglet, right?
Right.
Its only job is to keep the threads of the lace from fraying.
Right, because if you lose the aglet, the lace just unravels. It gets messy, and you can't thread it through the shoe anymore.
Now translate that to your DNA. Your chromosomes are the shoelaces. They carry all your genetic data, everything from blue eyes to height, personality traits, liver function.
Or the important stuff.
Exactly. But at the very tips of those chromosomes, you have the telomeres. They are these plastic caps. They are long, repetitive sequences of DNA that actually don't code for anything at all. They are genetic gibberish.
Gibberish, like they don't mean anything.
Right. Meaningless code. It's just the sequence TT
Oh.
over and over and over again. They aren't there to impart information. They are there to take a beating. They are a buffer.
But why does DNA need a buffer? I always imagined DNA replication as this perfect, elegant Xerox machine. Why is it so messy at the ends?
It's elegant, but it has a massive design flaw. DNA is surprisingly vulnerable right at the ends. If a cell sees a frayed end of a chromosome 1 without that telomere cap, it panics.
It panics, like it thinks it's broken.
It does. The cell mistakes that natural end for a snapped strand of DNA, like something caused by radiation or chemical damage. And when a cell thinks its DNA is broken, it triggers an emergency repair response.
What does that look like?
Well, it might try to stitch 2 different chromosomes together to fix the quote-unquote break.
That sounds like it would be a disaster, like stitching 2 different instruction manuals together.
It is catastrophic. It leads to genomic chaos. Because then, when the cell tries to divide, it can't pull those stitched chromosomes apart. They just tear.
Yeah.
So the telomeres are there to essentially signal to the cell, hey, calm down. Everything is fine. This is just the end of the line. Don't fix it.
Okay, so the plastic tip keeps the cell from accidentally ruining its own blueprint. But here's the part from the reading that I really struggled to wrap my head around. Why do they get shorter? Does the body just decide to cut a piece off every Tuesday? Why can't we just keep the cap on?
This is where we get into the actual mechanics of it. It is called the end replication problem. And honestly, the best way to picture this isn't a photocopier. It's a bricklayer.
A bricklayer. Okay, paint the picture for me.
Imagine a bricklayer building a wall right on top of an existing wall. He is standing on the old wall while he builds the new layer. He lays bricks all the way to the end, but because he has to stand on the wall to work, he can't lay the very last brick where his feet are.
Oh, I see. He runs out of room to stand. He physically occupies the space where the last brick is supposed to go.
Exactly. The biological machinery that copies our DNA works the exact same way. It needs to attach to the DNA strand to copy it. But at the very end, there's nowhere for the machinery to sit. It physically falls off before the job is completely done.
So every single time a cell divides, the new copy is just a tiny bit shorter than the original.
Correct. And this is where the telomere gibberish really saves you. Because the bricklayer is failing to copy the end. You want the end to be blank paper. You want it to be the plastic cap, not the actual shoelace thread.
Right.
The telomere sacrifices itself. It burns down like a fuse so the actual genes, the important stuff, stay completely intact.
But eventually you run out of blank paper. The fuse hits the bomb.
Well, not quite a bomb, more like a stop sign. This is a crucial distinction that a lot of people miss when talking about aging. When the aglet frays too much, the cell doesn't necessarily die right away. Instead, it enters a state called senescence.
Yes, the source is called these zombie cells, which is incredibly evocative.
It is the pop science term, but it fits really well. Think of it as a forced retirement. The cell is still alive, is taking up space, metabolizing, unfortunately spewing out inflammatory chemicals, but it retires from the division cycle. It absolutely stops copying itself.
But why does it stop? Why not just keep going until it falls apart?
It is a built-in safety mechanism. The cell realizes, I don't have enough protective cap left. If I divide again, I'm going to start cutting into the actual blueprints, the genes for my heart or my liver functions. So it shuts down the factory entirely to prevent those errors from being copied.
So aging, in a way, is just a massive accumulation of cells that have gone on strike.
To a large extent, yes. When enough cells in a tissue, say your skin or your immune system, enter senescence, the tissue can't renew itself anymore. It loses elasticity. It heals slower. That is the literal wear and tear we associate with getting old.
Okay, so that is the one-way road. The fuse burns down, the cell retires, we get wrinkles, we get frail. It feels very inevitable. It feels like the laws of physics. But, and here's where the research takes a hard left turn. The sources mention a twist. A Nobel Prize-winning twist.
Yes. This is where the story changes completely. For a long time, biology thought this shortening process was absolute. But in 2009, the Nobel Prize went to Elizabeth Blackburn, Carol Greider, and Jack Szostak because they found the exception.
They discovered that the rules aren't as rigid as we thought.
Exactly. They discovered that telomeres can be rebuilt.
They found a way to lengthen the fuse.
They found an enzyme called telomerase.
Telomerase. It sounds like a superhero name. Or maybe a villain, depending on how you look at it.
It's honestly a bit of both, as we're going to see. But functionally, think of telomerase as a specialized repair crew. Its only job is to come in after the bricklayer is finished, hover over that empty spot at the end, and add those repetitive sequences back onto the chromosome.
It refills the blank paper.
Exactly. It rebuilds the cap.
Okay, so if we have this repair crew inside our DNA right now, why are we having this conversation? Why do we age at all? Why aren't we all walking around with perfect, immortal cells?
Because the repair crew is mostly on a permanent coffee break. In adult humans, the gene for telomerase is turned off in almost all of your cells.
Turned off, but it's in there.
It's there, encoded in your DNA, but it is silenced. It is only active in very specific, high-stakes cells.
Like which ones?
Embryonic cells, obviously, because they need to grow an entire human from scratch without running out of fuse. Stem cells, which need to replenish your tissues for decades. And reproductive cells, sperm and eggs, because they absolutely have to pass on full-length chromosomes to the next generation.
But in my regular heart cells, my skin cells,
The shop is closed. The enzyme is completely dormant.
this brings us to what I call the one-button fantasy. Because I'm looking at this thinking, we have the enzyme, we have the gene, we know exactly how it works. Why can't we just turn it on? If we could wake up the repair crew in all our cells, wouldn't that be the literal fountain of youth? Why hasn't some pharma company just bottled this yet?
This is the core conflict of telomere biology. This is the second major focus point of our deep dive, and it is the most critical thing to understand today. There is a dark side to cellular immortality.
Let me guess.
The C word, the cancer paradox.
Yeah.
You have to ask yourself, what is the defining characteristic of a cancer cell?
It grows out of control. It just doesn't stop dividing.
Right. And to divide indefinitely, a cell needs to solve the end replication problem. If a cancer cell played by the normal rules, it would divide 30 or 40 times, its telomeres would burn out, and it would hit that stop sign. The tumor would just fizzle out before it ever became dangerous.
So cancer actually needs long telomeres to survive.
It does. Cancer cells hijack the system. About 90% of all cancers have found a way to reactivate telomerase. They turn the repair crew back on. They use it to remove the stop signal so they can keep growing tumors indefinitely.
Wow. So the very thing we want for anti-aging unlimited cellular renewal is the exact superpower that cancer uses to kill us.
That is the paradox. And it is why the one-button rejuvenation idea is so incredibly dangerous. If you took a pill that flooded your body with telomerase to, say, rejuvenate your skin, you might be throwing gasoline on a tiny microscopic precancerous cell that otherwise would have just safely died of old age.
That is a terrifying trade-off. It's like saying, here's the potion for eternal youth, but it has a high chance of turning you into a giant tumor.
It really illustrates why biology is rarely about good or bad molecules. It is all about context. The body shuts down telomerase in most tissues, specifically as a cancer prevention mechanism. The fuse burns out to stop the cell before it accumulates too many mutations.
So, medically speaking, this puts us in a serious bind. If we want to treat cancer, we should want to block telomerase, right? Just starve the tumor of its repair crew.
Theoretically, yes. And there are drugs in clinical trials trying to do exactly that, telomerase inhibitors. But here's the other side of that coin. If you completely block telomerase, you damage the healthy tissues that actually need it to survive.
The stem cells.
Right. Your bone marrow needs to make billions of blood cells every single day. The lining of your gut renews constantly. If you kill the telomerase to stop the cancer, you might cause massive organ failure in these fast-renewing systems.
So you can't live without it, but you can't let it run wild. It is this incredibly delicate balance between regeneration and uncontrolled growth.
Exactly. It is not a simple on-off switch. It is a highly tuned system. And we know exactly what happens when that tuning is off, even without cancer entering the picture.
Which leads us to the engine room section of the sources. We've been talking a lot theoretically about aging, but there are people who are born with broken telomere machinery. These are the telomere biology disorders.
Yes. These disorders are tragic, but they are also incredibly revealing for researchers. They show us what telomeres actually do for us in real time. When someone is born with a genetic defect in this system, we see exactly which parts of the body crash first.
And based on what you just said about bone marrow, I'm guessing it's those fast systems.
Correct. The vulnerability shows up as bone marrow failure. The body literally can't produce enough blood. It shows up in the immune system crashing and in the mucous membranes. These patients don't just quote-unquote look old. They have systemic failure of the specific tissues that desperately need to renew.
The sources used a really helpful mechanical metaphor to explain how the enzyme itself breaks in these cases. It isn't just a blob of protein, it's a machine with specific working parts.
Right. To build a telomere, you need a few core components working together. First, you have TERT. Think of TERT as the engine. It is the protein component that actually does the heavy lifting of building the new DNA.
Okay, TERT is the motor.
Then you have TERK. This is the template. It's an RNA blueprint. The engine needs instructions, right? It can't just build random bricks. It needs to know the exact pattern, that TTG sequence. TERK provides that pattern.
Engine and blueprint. Got it.
And finally, you have genes like DKC1. Think of these as the fasteners or the stabilizers. They hold the whole complex together so the engine doesn't just fall apart while it's working.
So if you have a genetic mutation in the engine, or you somehow lose the blueprint, or the fasteners come loose,
the renewal conveyor belt completely breaks down. The telomeres shorten way too fast, and you get these severe illnesses. This is so important because it really grounds the conversation. Telomeres aren't just about vanity or wrinkles. If the machinery fails, It is a life-threatening medical condition.
That puts a really heavy perspective on it.
Yeah.
But I do want to pivot now because we've done the hard science, we've covered the scary paradox. Now I want to talk about the consumer reality.
Right.
Because if you Google the word telomeres today, you do not just get medical journals. You get targeted ads.
Ah, yes. The clock in a box.
I have seen these everywhere. You spit in a tube, you send it off in the mail, and for a few $100s, they promise to tell you your real biological age. Or, even more ominously, how much time you have left.
It is incredibly compelling marketing.
Hmm.
I mean, who doesn't want to peek at their own biological odometer?
Exactly. I kind of want to know. But is it real? Because the sources we read seemed, well, conflicted, or maybe just polite about it.
The verdict from the serious research community is you should be very, very skeptical. And we can critique this without being smug, because there is some truth to it, but it is buried under a massive mountain of noise.
Okay, so what is the actual truth?
The truth is that there is a population-level correlation. If you take 10,000 people who are aged 80 and 10,000 people who are aged 20, the 80-year-olds will generally have shorter telomeres. That is an absolute fact.
Okay, so shorter equals older. But applying that to me specifically is where the problem is.
Exactly. Individual prediction is just incredibly noisy. It's like trying to predict exactly when a specific car will break down based solely on its mileage. Sure, high mileage is a risk factor, but what about how it was driven? What about the maintenance history? What about the road conditions?
So what are the road conditions for our telomeres? What actually messes up these consumer tests?
Well, first, genetic variation. Some people are simply born with naturally shorter telomeres. It's just how they are built from day one. But their fuse burns slower, or they have other protective mechanisms, so they're totally fine. They might live to be 90. But if they took one of these consumer tests at age 30, it might tell them they are biologically 50.
Which would cause them a massive amount of unnecessary stress.
Which, ironically, is actually bad for your telomeres.
A self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the second major issue is that different tissues age at very different rates. Most of these mail-in tests measure telomeres in your white blood cells because blood or saliva is easy to get. But that only tells you about the state of your immune system.
Wait, so my immune system might look old because I had a really bad flu last year, but my heart and my brain are perfectly fine.
Precisely. Telomere length fluctuates. Chronic inflammation, stress, smoking, these all accelerate the burning of the fuse. But we have also seen in studies that lifestyle changes can stabilize them. So a single test might just capture a snapshot of a really stressful year, but is not your permanent destiny.
So if a company sends you an email that says, based on your telomeres, you have 12 years left, that is
Scientifically invalid, full stop.
Hmm.
It is a marker of risk in history, but it is not a precise countdown timer. It's a piece of data, sure, but you absolutely should not treat it as a prophecy.
I think that is a really important distinction for anyone listening who might be tempted to drop a paycheck on one of these kits. You are buying a statistic, not a crystal ball.
And honestly, the advice for keeping your telomeres healthy is the exact same advice for general health that we have known for decades. Reduce your stress, exercise regularly, don't smoke, eat well.
It always comes back to eat your vegetables and get some sleep, doesn't it? We want this shiny sci-fi solution, but the answer is usually just a salad.
It usually is. Evolution is very hard to cheat.
So let's wrap this up. We've gone from the late-night anxiety of the ticking clock to the mechanics of the shoelace and the bricklayer. We've talked about the Nobel Prize-winning repair crew and the genuinely scary paradox of cancer. What does this all mean for us? What is the ultimate synthesis here?
I think the synthesis is this. Telomeres are a brilliant evolutionary solution, but they are a solution to a specific problem. They allow us to be large, complex, long-lived animals. They allow us to grow and renew our tissues. But they put a hard limit on that renewal, specifically to protect us from chaos.
They are the brakes on the car. You might hate that they slow you down, but you really, really don't want to drive without them.
That is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And telomerase, the enzyme, is the key that can unlock those brakes. But as we've seen with cancer, unlocking the brakes is a very dangerous game.
It really challenges that desire we all have for a simple fix. We want the one molecule that explains aging. We want the one pill that reverses it.
That is the final thought I would leave with the listener today. Why do we crave that simple expiration date? Why do we want to believe there is a single fuse we can just swap out and replace? The reality of biology is a complex, beautiful system of trade-offs. We are built to last a long time, but we are not built to last forever. And maybe understanding the elegance of that safety fuse is better than constantly trying to hack it.
A system of trade-offs. It makes the gray hairs feel a little more like a safety feature, a sign that the system is actually working and less like a failure.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for guiding us through the microscopic details today. It has been a fascinating look under the hood.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And to everyone listening, thank you for taking this deep dive with us. We will catch you on the next one.